comic book writer Vita Ayala has been in the news a lot lately, and recently there were some advertisements for an associate editor position at Marvel Comics, and initially Vita went out there and was encouraging minority candidates to go in there and apply for the job, which is perfectly fine. It seems like a smart thing to do, but it quickly morphed into something else. And to talk with me about that is somebody, this is near and dear to Javade Dargan's heart. He started as an associate editor at Milestone Comics. How you doing, Javade?
Hey, Wes, how you doing? And happy 2022 to everybody out there. It's nice to be back on the It's Complicated bandwagon again to talk about lovely and delicious hot topic issues like this. Hot button, hot topic, it's hot everything.
So initially, like I said, Vito just went out there and was like, hey, I'm really encouraging people that are black and brown and minority communities, LGBTQ plus to go in there. And then Vita starts putting some other caveats on here, Javane. So you're a proud brown man, and you're excluded now.
Oh yes, and the funny thing is that definitely saw this coming. There's no two ways about it. Definitely saw this coming. I'm really surprised that I can't attribute it to, I guess, cognitive dissonance. Because clearly by the tweets that she put out there, because I'm blocked by Vita Ayala, so I can't go to her Twitter thread myself and look at what prompted some of these responses. Because for those of you who have looked at the Twitter thread, because I'm looking at it from the bound. Yeah, Tweety Bird, right? Bounded to comics.com. It's like, one thing I didn't like particularly about the piece is how they kind of posted some of the tweets sort of out of order in the timeline. But basically between December 29th, when she, like you said, she put out the relatively benign tweet of black and brown people, especially femme people, please apply. There's nothing wrong with that. And that was on December 29th, about 12:18. There's nothing wrong with that. It's like, even though we all have a different idea of what diversity means or what we think other people think diversity means, you usually want more you benefit from having more perspectives, whether it's ideological, whether it's from ethnic experience, whether it's from nationality. Right now, been recruiting for Animated Concepts and have been putting a pretty good crew together. And we've got people of all colors, all nationalities. Would like to get at least one female on board, but that hasn't been the case just yet. But there's nothing wrong with that. And then when she gets into, they put one of these tweets out of order. So it's on December 30th. So I don't know what happened between the 29th and the 30th. But about 4:36, she's saying that the fact that people are angry that I tweeted that black and brown people should apply and call it racism is funny and sad at the same time. I hope they figure themselves out sometime soon, because they are only telling on themselves with that nonsense. And depending on what some of the responses might have been to a tweet, that might have been a perfectly reasonable response. But then apparently at 4:32, which was 4 minutes before the tweet I just read, she said black and brown people, queer people, people that are not cis dudes, and any combo of the above. If you're even a little curious about being an associate editor for Marvel, click through, apply, you are needed. And I'm like, I don't know what she was thinking when she put that one out. So you're right. This is near the dear my heart. I got into the comics industry professionally by basically joining Milestone Media as an editorial intern. When I went back to work for Milestone Media, I worked as an associate editor. So according to Ayala here, I'm not welcome. I wouldn't be welcome at Marvel and apparently and/or DC, and that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Definitely she's biased. Prejudice is like, she's definitely in that realm. I'll leave the racism thing alone, because I think this is a question now of, it's like, is she discriminated against me because of my sexual orientation or my gender identity? I'm not sure exactly what the difference is too, but it's definitely discriminatory. There's no two ways about it.
I think it's both.
And that's if she wrote these tweets. Like I said, I have to go about what bounding into comics.com is reprinting. So I'm putting that little disclaimer out there, because as we know, people like to play around with stuff to create controversy, if you will. But if any of this is true, if this is actually lifted from her Twitter thread, there's no doubt this is discriminatory. Now there's the technical thing. Can she actually hire somebody? And the answer is no. It doesn't. She's not in the HR department or whatever it is at Disney or Marvel Entertainment. But if she has any kind of influence on it from a PR perspective, this is disastrous.
Well, they're certainly trying to influence the candidates that come in there and are trying to apply for the job, and also discourage certain people. Like certainly, you and I would be discouraged from ever doing this.
Oh,
now I don't want to be exceptionally poor, and you're a grown man now. I don't think you would be that poor either. So it's not like this is a position that you or I would be looking into. This is an entry level position. Yep. But I don't think it's good to discourage anybody. If you love comic books and you want to be a part of the comic book industry and you want to throw your hat in the ring, I say do it. Now, if you want to go out there and encourage certain sectors more than others, by just saying, yes, I would like to see Black and brown people and especially femme people apply for this position. That's perfectly fine. I think that's well within bounds. But once you start being exclusionary and try to influence the pool of candidates by telling them that they're not wanted. Because whether Vita Ayala, obviously Vita Ayala is not part of the editorial staff, but they are a Marvel Comics writer. They're a DC Comics writer. You and I know that Vita Ayala, isn't all that talented and likely isn't long for the industry. But a new person into comics or somebody that's just really into comic books might think that they're a really big person, and that could discourage somebody from going out there and trying to achieve the dream. And I think that's disgusting.
Oh no, like I said, I'm no fan of Children of the Atom. So it's just not. It's just not. It's like I picked up the first 2 issues because Bernard Chang drew it, but it's like, nah, bro, that's okay. I'll pass.
And the good thing is, the first 2 issues, once you read the first one, you pretty much know what happens in the second one because it's the same comic book for the same price.
So all I'll say is that I agree that there's nothing wrong with encouragement. There's nothing wrong with encouraging people to get involved in the industry that are not traditionally, and here comes the woke language, guys, not traditionally represented in industry, because you want to create stories, you want to create a company, you want to create a culture that basically, and this is why you do it, that basically gives you the advantage of making as much money as possible. What happened here is that it apparently within the span of a day went from encouraging to now, like you said, excluding a certain group of people who also happen to be, whether people like it or not. And this is my thing. Maybe Marvel knows something that I don't know. Maybe DC knows something that I don't know. But it's like, by and large, especially from some of the work I've been doing with animated concepts and looking at stuff, it's like straight males are a significant portion of your current comic book publishing audience. We are also a significant portion of those who consume your product, your content, and other forms of media. So I don't know what the long, I don't know what the long game here is in terms of doing this. And Vita may be able to get away with this because she's not an employee of Marvel, because she's a freelancer. So maybe she's, clearly, if I was looking to apply for a position at Marvel, if there was any kind of a savvy political or even ambulance chasing kind of a not-for-profit, I would have somebody apply for this position and then claim a hostile work environment the minute I cross the threshold of the company based on the text, based on a tweet like this. Because this is insane. See, this is what we've talked about this thing before. This is what happens when you don't know what you're fighting for. And when you don't know what you're fighting for, you end up saying and doing things when you end up slitting your own throat and definitely undermining, if not kneecapping, your own cause. The whole point of anybody who is trying to promote diversity is that you want to avoid the exclusion that you as a marginalized group, you as an underrepresented group have experienced previously. The goal is not to,
you're not supposed to be settling scores by paying it forward.
Exactly. When I'm in charge, I'm going to rain down hellfire and brimstone on those, and then we'll scorch the earth, and your mothers and the children and the mothers who bore them will be destroyed. That's not what the goal is here. That's not what the goal here is. And clearly she doesn't understand that, and there's an entire community, an entire organized group of people who don't understand it either, that is not the goal. And I'll go back to, this was something when I was in college, and I think I've told the story before, but I'll tell it again because I think it's apropos. A young lady who said, when she was talking about black people, like, if we ever got in charge, I don't think that we would do the same things to white people that they did to us. Very debunked. It was a nice thought, but it's like, dude, power corrupts. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the only way that power doesn't corrupt is that you have to have a clear understanding of of the cause that you're committed to and your convictions that provide the foundations for that commitment. Because if you don't, this is what you end up. This is where you end up at. This is where you end up at. The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
See, what's interesting about this is, Gervais, is you would think the end goal would be great comic books to grow the medium and get more customers in there, so everybody, including the associate editor, all the way up to the superstar writers, would make more money. And just get this thing like a fire just burning and it's uncontrollable as people just come in and consume everything. I don't think there might be a scorched earth policy about this, but I don't think it's to get an inner fire in the comic readers. I think it's to kind of exterminate maybe a large portion of the comic readership and replace them. I think that's kind of the end goal, at least on Vita Ayala's part. But as you mentioned, Vita Ayala is not an editor. They're not an executive at Marvel Comics. Why do Marvel Comics put up with this, letting freelancers go out there and essentially speak on their behalf and essentially put out there that this is what Marvel Comics are promoting? They certainly didn't go out there and say, hey, listen, Vita Ayala is a freelancer with us. We don't agree with what she's saying. We want this position open to everybody, and we will hire the most capable person that for the job.
Yeah, I can't answer that question for Marvel. I can't answer that question for Marvel, and probably by association by DC. I can't answer that question. This is something that basically you would have already had a press release out already. So where are we? We're like January 11th, so 11 days into the new year. And you would have had some kind of a press release out saying that, Miss Ayala is more than entitled to her opinions and her views. But we here at Marvel Comics are welcoming of everyone who loves comics and want to be a part of the industry, no matter your sexual, racial, or whatever it is background. The fact that if they have been radio silent, because I don't know if Marvel's issued a response, so I'll say if they have, kudos. If they haven't, way to drop the ball. But there's no way to respond. As a matter of fact, this is something that, it would be like, about right about now, if not already, Miss Ayala would have put out a tweet saying that, due to me wanting to spend more time with my family, I'm stepping away from you right now to take care of some personal things at home. When we all know that that's a typical, politician response when you get caught cheating your wife because you're hiking to the Appalachian Mountains, wherever you were. It's like that's the kind of response that would have to be elicited from doing something like this. There's just no excuse. There's just no excuse for the radio silence for Marvel in this, and there's no excuse for her putting this out there and not understanding that it's just not a good look. And it's like you're not representing Marvel well. You're not doing your publisher, the person who cuts your checks, the person who gives you an opportunity to earn a living. You're doing them no favors with this approach. And you're right. And it should be about making good comics. And you can make directed efforts to include certain groups in your company or as a part of your team. But if you're doing that because you see the benefit of having that particular perspective, viewpoint, skill set, whatever it is, as a part of your team. There's nothing wrong with that. But when it becomes a cause to the point, when you almost become a rebel without a cause, which I think that's what Vita Ayala has become at this point, that's when it becomes destructive. That's when it's of no benefit to anyone. And that's when, even in her own, whatever cause she's trying to push, you have given people ammunition. So I don't know a lot about Comicsgate. I'm never going to sit down and spend a whole lot of time figuring it out. But if I wasn't Comicsgate, based on the little surface knowledge that I have about this, this is political gold. It's like you would never be, if I was a member of Comicsgate as they've been described as a hate group, you would never be able to say anything to me again, because all I would do is bring this series of tweets up every time. Get out of here, because there's like at least, because if you look at the likes on it, there's at least 1,000 of you out there, that industry or whatever it is. So get out of here. You tell this somebody else. You hate me, I hate you. The only question is whether or not I can inflict my hatred and prejudice and bigotry or bias upon you, or I can't. It's like whatever doesn't kill me makes me strong. It's just, and it's not what comics is about. It's not what comics is about. Sorry.
The other interesting last point I kind of want to bring up here is once you reach a certain amount of success, you can get away with more things, right? Because you bring a value with your brand and your name to where, if you sell based on your name, you can get away with some more stuff. Vita Ayala doesn't really sell. They bring headlines. You're able to get headlines because Vita Ayala is, Puerto Rican, non-binary, lesbian.
Yep.
There's like 4 or 5 boxes that get checked there, so you can get headlines outside the comic book industry, but you still don't get sales with it. So what's the benefit or the value add to Marvel themselves to continuously put up with this? When people say it, they come on here and they're like, you know what? After what Vita Ayala said, I'm just done with Marvel, and I don't have a response to that other than I don't blame you. Like, you can only put up with so much.
Well, it's because as she says in her old tweet, she says she's an Afro Puerto Rican trans non-binary person who works in the industry, and the value of that is that Marvel gets to say, "Hey, we're progressive," and they get to get headlines based on that, and that appeals to a certain group that, whether people like it or not, they have money, and that they're called advertisers. So advertisers always try to stay ahead of the game.
In comics.
No, but there is.
They lost that.
No, but there is advertisers in terms of the larger ecosphere that Marvel belongs to, which is Disney. And the thing is that they want to be seen. They want to be seen as associated with positive brands. That's the value she brings to it. What she brings to it is that, hey, before you come looking for us, we're not racist. We're not against anybody's sexual orientation or gender. What she provides is basically a force field against that. So it's like when you look at Amazon.
That's pretty much their
Amazon
bio.
says something.
It's not, I'm a great comic book writer. It's check every single box you could ever imagine.
Dude, it's not like we haven't had this discussion before and saying, like, with some of these people, you can't go after them because if you try to go after them on the one part of the identity here, they come over with the overhand right from this identity here. And the thing is that she's basically now has committed that same faux pas herself. She went too far. She was doing just fine until she went cis dude. So now, Vita Ayala is basically calling for the discrimination against not just white men because, and I have to presume, no, I can't presume. I'm just going to go by what she said. So basically, she's now discriminating against white men, black men, Puerto Rican men, Irish men, Asian men, whatever, because if you decide for a fact that you like women, and you like women based on your gender, I assume at this point that your gender identity, it's like, I like breasts, then basically you're out. And the fact that she doesn't see that as being just, not even just discriminatory, but like broadly discriminatory, including the people that she claims to be for, because she was all right till she said, in any combination, any combo of the above. It's like, dude, you not only have you basically alienated pretty much, I don't know, am I fair in saying 75% of your customer base? But it's like, not only that.
Talking about superhero comics.
Exactly. But you definitely 50% of mankind. It's like, dude, it's like, I mean, she has this is a hell of a shotgun. It got the spread
the
on
whole
it.
Thing is, Jermaine, if you didn't put as much energy into writing good comic books as they went into gatekeeping and trying to influence comics and essentially run customers off, they might write a good comic book in their lifetime. We're still waiting for that.
Well, all I'll say about that one is that a friend of mine, we were talking about another situation, and he basically said, when it comes to stuff like, you keep your head down, do the work, then talk sugar, honey, iced tea. And I think there's a reasonable argument to be made that for at least some of us, because some people, either there are people out there who are buying her work, or there are people at Marvel who just think she's the bee's knees. But in terms of the talking sugar, honey, iced tea, some of us will argue maybe she hasn't done the work yet. But that's the marketplace. If she keeps getting work and her books keep selling, you can never argue.
I've seen the numbers.
I know. I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm just saying, because you know what my feeling about this is. It's like we talk about this all the time. Is that everybody keeps saying this stuff doesn't sell? Everybody keeps saying this stuff doesn't sell, and Marvel and DC keep publishing it. And I would assume they publish it because somebody's buying it. And if somebody's not buying it. I got you. Spider-Man and Batman sell enough that you
Spider-Man and Batman are subsidizing Vita Ayala's career.
I've got no problem with that. And that for me as a businessman, that is like basically heresy. It's like, you make the money off of Batman to allow you to experiment with other titles. But if it becomes clear after the first or second run or the first or second project that this person's work doesn't sell or this particular idea doesn't sell, I would not continue to throw good money after bad money to keep publishing that thing. Even now, as we're gearing up for the launch for animated concepts, I told people we got 2 projects we're going to put out. I hope those suckers make money, because if they don't, then we ain't doing the 3rd project. But if we do one of those things and we see that one project so significantly less than the other, and there's not a marketplace for it, I'm not going to keep doing it. Now, if one of them, if it's a creator-owned project and they just have like this project where they're willing to put up the production costs,
they got the finances. That's on them.
Exactly, they got the finances. And if I like the project enough that I think, I think it should be out there, even though the market's not there, we can grow it. Welcome to patronage, because that's what you're doing. You're not running a business, okay? You're not selling a commercial product at that point. What you're saying is, I think this work is important. So therefore, if you're willing to put the time and money into it, I will spend the say $1,500 to $2,500 to promote and distribute it. And as long as I make my $1,500 to $2,500 to do that, great. As long as I break even. But if I'm losing money every time I'm doing it, I'm not running a business. I'm running a charity. That's what you're running. And apparently at Marvel and DC, because they're operating in the aggregate, it appears that they don't need to make money on certain of these projects. Jim Lee said it. He said, and some of us believe, and many of us believe he's lying. He said 25% of the books that they put out either break even or lose money. I personally believe it's 50, if not 75% of the books they put out do that. But it's like, that's what he said. And it's like, and that's okay if you're doing that, because that's called, I got to put a project out into the marketplace to see if there's an audience for it. If there isn't, then I cancel it. Period. Or I figure out why I think it, like axing around or looking at why it didn't sell, and then I put it out again, retool. But to say that I'm just going to put a book out by like I said, I don't know what her numbers are. If she wants to say I'm one of the best-selling artists writers at Marvel, whatever it is, all right, fine. Receipts, please. But if not, you are correct. I don't know what these guys are doing with this, but for her to literally, for her, what she said, I am not allowed to be a part of this industry anymore, and I find that short-sighted. I find it sad, and I find it personally offensive. And it's like I didn't go to Milestone and work there and advocate and champion for the people that I do, much like I've done on this channel in terms of there being representation in comics to pave the way for somebody like this.
Well, I find it problematic. That's what I say, Jermaine. Now, I do want to say thank you very much for giving your perspective. So when it came into the industry as an associate editor, when it still has a love for comic books and starting up your own publisher now, I think Vita Ayala could learn a lot more from you than they're learning from the industry at large right now.